Good morning. Today I'm going to show you how to make sourdough bread. The first part of it is making the dough first thing in the morning and feeding the starter. So we fed our starter last night. We feed it twice a day. I'm sure you can find some videos on the internet for making sourdough starter. This is ours. Make sure that you have about 3 or 4 cups worth. We're gonna put about 2.5 cups of starter into our bowl. I like to measure with a scale. I realize not everybody has a kitchen scale, but when I put it in, I measure about 1 pound and 4 ounces. I'm gonna pour it on in there. You want to make sure you have at least a cup left that you can feed for the next day's loaves. So you can see the starter is nice and bubbly. That tells you that it's alive. Yeast is a unicellular organism that eats and then it exhales, and that's what makes all those great bubbles in there. So before I make my bread, I'm gonna feed my starter what's left of it. We've got about a cup of starter left, and so every time you feed it, you want to double it. So I've got about a cup, so I'm going to put about a cup, half a cup of water and half a cup of flour. So I'm going to pour my water in there, 4 ounces or half a cup. And then I'm going to put my flour in there, about half a cup of flour, which on the scale is about 2.8 ounces by weight instead of by volume. Okay, a little bit more. And then I'll set this aside so that all the wild yeast in the air are gonna come in here all day long, and this is gonna get bubbly, and then I'll feed it again tonight, and then I'll be ready to cook with it tomorrow. So for the rest of our dough, I started with my starter. I'm gonna put in the water. So we have about 3 1/4 cups of water. If you're doing it by weight instead of by volume, it's about 1 pound, 11 ounces. So I'm gonna pour that in. I need a little bit more. The water should be kind of warmish, about like if you're giving a baby a bath. It shouldn't burn your fingers, but the warmer it is, the quicker the yeast is activated. So I'm gonna pour that in. Okay, then our salt, if you're measuring by volume, you would use 1.5 tablespoons of salt. I'm measuring it by weight, so I put in 1 ounce of salt. I like sea salt, but I haven't been brave enough to go to Costco, and we're out of the Costco salt, so I'm using regular grocery store salt, which does the job. Okay, 1 ounce of salt. And then here's the big one, 12 cups of bread flour. If you're measuring by weight instead of volume, it's about 3 pounds, 10 ounces. And so we're just gonna dump that all in there. If you don't have a KitchenAid mixer, you can definitely still do this by hand. It's just a lot more work. But this is a whole bunch of dough because it's gonna make 3 big sandwich loaves. So usually what we do is we leave 1 out to make for sandwiches, and then the other loaves we put in the freezer, and this kind of bread freezes really well. So once I get my 3 pounds, 10 ounces, I'm gonna put it on the mixer. Again, this part could be done by hand, but it kind of takes a while. Okay, you can pause it. Okay, once it's all kind of come together, you're gonna knead it on the counter for a little while. So I'll show you what it looks like when there's no more dry chunks, but you can see it's still kind of shaggy looking. I'm gonna knead it a little bit. So get it out of the bowl. You can see it's kind of sticky. If it's too hard to knead, walk away for 10 minutes and come back till the dough's had a chance to relax a little bit. save your bowl because we're gonna put this right back in it to rise. So basically you're folding it in half and then using the palm of your hand to push the bread down. And we're gonna do that for 3 or 4 minutes until it's a nice smooth dough. Okay, after a few minutes of kneading, you can see it's a lot smoother. So we're gonna roll it over and make a ball and then put that in our bowl. I'm gonna cover it with saran wrap and then just let it sit for 4 hours until it's doubled in volume. Okay, it's been 4 hours later. We've done some stay-at-home schooling, some exercise, gotten dressed, and you can see that the dough is now doubled in size. So I'm gonna dump it out and split it evenly into thirds. This recipe makes 3 loaves of bread. Get all of the dough out of the bowl so it doesn't clog up my drain. And then I have a bench scraper that I use to cut it. You can use a knife or you can just pull it apart with your hands. This makes it go a little bit faster. You could just eyeball it and do it in thirds. I like to weigh each piece to make sure that they're all the same size so I don't get any really big loaves or really small loaves. So each of them is gonna be around 2 pounds, 3 ounces. That one was exactly 2 pounds, 3 ounces. This one's a little short, so I'm gonna add a little bit more, 2 pounds, 3 ounces. And this one is a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna take a little bit off of this one and give some to the other loaves. Okay, then for shaping the bread, what we do is you start with one of them, squish it out into a rectangle, and then as you're rolling, gently twist it so that you're smoothing out the surface of it. And then I tuck the ends in. And then once I have a rectangle here, I just put it in the pan. I'm gonna do that with the other 3. I'll show you again. I kind of get a flat rectangle and then we roll it up. And fold in the ends. And then the last one. Then I'm gonna cover those with a wet cloth, kitchen towel, and I'm gonna leave them on the counter for 4 more hours until they've doubled in size again. And that's the last one.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait. I said once you hear the beep.
I did hear the beep.
Oh, then that was...
Hold on.
Oops.
Okay, now our bread has been rising for another 4 hours. We're getting ready to put it in the oven. I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees. I'm gonna slash the tops of the loaves just to give them a place to expand a little bit. You could use any knife. This is called a bread lame and it's to slash the tops of the loaves. It's basically just a razor blade on a stick. Oops, came off a little bit. I'm gonna throw these in the oven. And then I'm also going to put some hot water in with my loaves in a pan that it was in the oven when it was preheating. And that allows the crust to stay soft so that it can continue to rise in the oven a little bit longer. In professional bakeries, they have steam injectors that does the same thing, but I don't have that in my oven. So I just put a pan, any kind of pan in the bottom, pour some water in to create some steam, and set the timer for 45 minutes. That's it. Okay, and our sourdough bread is ready to come out of the oven. So here we have our 3 loaves. You'll want to let it rest in the pan for about 5 minutes and then take it out and put it on the cooling rack. Let it cool down all the way on the cooling rack before you try to wrap it up. We put ours in just a bread storage bag, and then once it's all the way cool, you can put it in the freezer and it'll freeze really well for a couple months. Although we usually keep at least 1 out to eat fresh the next day for sandwiches. Makes really good grilled cheese sandwiches and super yummy French toast.
Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Bye-bye. See you next time.